Welcome to the Sharkpreneur podcast with Kevin Harrington and Seth Greene. Kevin Harrington is the inventor of the infomercial, one of the original sharks from the hit TV show Shark Tank, and has generated over $5 billion in TV and digital direct response sales. Seth Greene is the world's first trusted authority on cutting-edge direct response marketing, a best-selling author, and the only 3-time Marketer of the Year nominee. On the podcast, Kevin and Seth interview sharkpreneurs who share straight talk on what it takes to explode your business.
49 faces looked to him in triumph. Over the last 12 months, they had each taken turns and promoted his business for a week at a time, driving over $987,342 in revenue. What if you had a network of 50 centers of influence who promoted your business every week for a year? Grab your copy of the #1 Amazon best-selling book, The Ultimate Guide to Growing Your Business with a Podcast, at 33% off the Amazon price by going to ultimatepodcastbook.com. Again, that website for 33% off the Amazon price is ultimatepodcastbook.com. Welcome to the podcast. This is your co-host, Seth Greene. Today, I have the good fortune to be joined by Chris Miles from moneyripples.com. Chris, thanks so much for joining us.
Man, it's a pleasure to be back here with you, Seth.
Likewise, and thank you so much for having me on your show. And I think we've done multiple shows back and forth, but let's go back in time and talk about how you got started.
Yeah, I mean, initially I got started because I thought I wanted to become a business owner, but I didn't know what that meant or what that looked like. I was actually going to become a business consultant, but then after a little while, I said, all right, let's drop out of college, take a little sabbatical, find some business to start, and then maybe I'll go back and get my MBA and start consulting people on businesses. Because why should I consult people on businesses just being some, snot-nosed kid coming out with an MBA, right? With no experience in business.
Even though there are plenty of MBAs and business students who do that. Yes, I love that you wanted to actually get your hands dirty first.
That's right. I wanted to be somebody that actually had experience a little bit. So I was look around and found financial advising as a business that I started doing. Did that for 4 years. Loved it so much. I never went back to finish my degree. I just stayed dropped out, and I was on that path. But then 4 years in, I sat down with my dad, who was like the penny pinching saver, debt free, saving his 401k and everything. And he says, Chris, I'm 61. I'm going to retire right now. What do I need to do? And I said, Dad, based on all these years of scrimping and saving and everything you've done, you better hope you die in about 5 or 6 years, because that's when you're going to run out of money. And he said, well, that's not what I wanted to hear.
Yeah.
So long story short, I told him, I don't know what you can do other than keep saving and maybe work until you're 70. And that's what he did. And he's still alive to this day, stretching every penny he possibly can, right? But that bothered me. And it bothered me that it wasn't just that, but a month later, I'm talking with a friend, and he said, well, how many of your clients are financially free where they don't worry about money? I said, well, they all worry about money. They all worry about outliving their money, living too long. Okay, great, Chris. Good job. How about this? How many of you guys as financial advisors are financially free, not off the commissions you've been earning off these people, but actually doing these investments? And as I really was honest and I thought about it, and there's probably about 100 guys in our office, I said, probably none. There's guys been working here since the 1970s. This is back in 2005 we're talking. So I'm like, since the 1970s they've been doing this. They don't look like they're quitting anytime soon. He's like, there's your problem. And so I started taking the red pill, the matrix red pill, right? I actually went down a different rabbit hole, more like with real estate investing. And later that next year, after I decided I'm going to quit being a financial advisor because I realized it wasn't working. By the way, my friend and his dad, he was at the point where his dad couldn't retire. Even though I had just sat down with his dad as a financial advisor, telling him if he's saved for another 20 years, he can do it. He had already done it within a year using real estate. And so as a result, I'm like, man, there's got to be something here. And so I quit being a financial advisor, vowed never to teach about money again. And then I ended up retiring, so to speak. Was a mortgage broker for a bit, but I started learning about how to do this real estate investing to the point where I was able to retire when I was 28, almost 29 years old that next year. And of course, when you're 28 years old and people are like, how in the heck are you retired at 28? Everybody wants to know how you did it. So eventually 2007 came out of retirement to teach people how to do that. And that's kind of what's led up to where I am today, is really teach people how to become work optional, where they work because they want to, not because they have to, because they have enough passive income to pay all their bills, everything that they need. And they can just choose to work or not.
That is an absolutely incredible journey. And I'm sure the longer version is in a book, if not more than one, somewhere. So you, quote unquote, came out of retirement to teach other people what you had done. How did that evolve into the way Money Ripples works today?
Yeah, a few things. I mean, one, the Great Recession really kicked my butt. I went from financially free to all of a sudden over $1 million in debt. Had to dig back out of that hole once again, and learned like how to get creative with money, not just how to invest it, but also how to find and free up cash, right? Especially as business owners, we need cash. It's like the lifeblood of everything we do. So that's what I was doing was how do I find more cash? How do I leverage and make the best use of the money I have and be a wiser steward of it? And so between those experiences, that's kind of where Money Ripples came from, right? Because I did start up a company in 2007. We broke off in 2012 and I created Money Ripples at that point. But it was really focused around cash flow, right? Because cash flow creates more options in your life. And when you have more options, you have more freedom. And so everything we teach is centered around that. It's always about how do we improve your cash flow from not just future planning, but what about present day? Like, what do we do about now? As my sign says, live your life now, not tomorrow, right? Like, how do we actually create that freedom today versus waiting decades to see if it even worked in the first place?
That makes a lot of sense. Tell us a little bit about the evolution of Money Ripples, for the last 10, 15 years.
Yeah, it's been one heck of an evolution because so when I split off from those other partners, I remember it was actually out of the blue. I actually intended to take over that company at some point. I could tell that the owner was going to eventually quit and burn out. So my whole intention was to take over that company. Well, not quite like a Steve Jobs situation, but similar. All of a sudden, even though I built out their entire coaching program and I was their main coach and where all the testimonials were coming from, they finally just said, "Here's your termination letter."
Wow.
They totally cut me off. And they said, by the way, remember how you signed a non-compete last year? Which I did because I thought, well, I'm going to be here forever. So sure, I'll sign whatever non-compete you've got. So I signed their non-compete. They were scared I'm going to steal all their dentists and chiropractors that we were working with and stuff because we'd freed up like millions and millions of dollars for those guys. And I said, no, I'll stay in my own sandbox. You can play in yours. I'll focus on a market that I know you hate, which is women entrepreneurs in the state of Utah, right? Because I know you hate both those places or those categories. And so that's what I did. And I literally started with nothing. And I even exchanged with a web guy to coach him, and he paid for created my website for me in old Joomla format that nobody wants to use anymore. I basically got kicked off lean and mean, just bootstrapping everything, using my $5,000 credit card to help out because my credit was hashed from the recession, so I didn't have much credit to rely on. And I was just literally like meet with centers of influence in that place to where within that year, I was able to build it up over six figures that first year, despite the non-compete. And that was the first few years. Started my podcast. I actually have my Money Ripples podcast now for 11 years. So we have just about to hit our 1,000th episode at this point. And I started to realize that took a life of its own with my podcast. Because the thing is, like, many people talk about driving leads, right? But not many people talk about how do you nurture those leads. And unintentionally, not even realizing it, I was nurturing my leads with my podcast. Like, people were finding me and saying, hey, I've been listening to you for months or years, literally. Or like, I think I'm ready to reach out. And so that's kind of what got me going. I actually went more virtual in 2015 after I went through a divorce. I realized that I didn't want to go speaking everywhere. I wanted to do what worked. So I doubled down on my podcast, got interviewed on other podcasts just like yours, and just did that. Working 5 or 10 hours a week, but I doubled my revenue in my business, octupled my profit as a result because I cut off all the stuff that really wasn't working. It was just like that Pareto's principle. What's the best things that are working? Or Mike Michalowicz calls it the pumpkin plan, right? Which is how do you focus on that one prize winning pumpkin? And so I started doing that, went more virtual, and eventually it progressed to the point where as I progressed in my own journey, eventually I started getting back into real estate investing. So I started teaching people how to create passive income again by the mid 2010s and got myself financially free the second time by the end of 2016, helped clients do the same, and so now it really is all about that work optional message, not just improving cash flow, but it's now about the end is how do you get to the point where you work because you want to, not because you have to, right? And having passive income, even if you're a busy entrepreneur, even if you love what you do, the thing is that we always need multiple streams of income to help protect what we've got, especially our families and our legacy and everything we're trying to create. And that's really the ripple effect I'm here to create and trying to help others do too, is that as you become more free financially, more free with your time, you also have more resources to be able to bless more lives. And that's kind of the ripple effect we're trying to create.
Amen. That is a beautiful thing. What are some of the biggest misconceptions you hear people talking about when it comes to money?
Yeah. Everything about money is about locking up in prison. Have you ever noticed that? I always think it's funny when you're a business owner and some financial advisor tells you, hey, throw your money in these stocks. Basically, throw your money in these other companies you have no control over. You really have no vested interest in, other than you're trying to ride at some stock, but you know those guys get paid way more than you will. Why not invest your own business first, right? So I remember I got confronted with that as a financial advisor, and it was a good argument. The business owner said, Chris, I can go take 10 grand, turn it into 20 grand in a couple months of my business versus you maybe making me 12%. You know, that's 1,200 bucks on 10 grand in a year. Come on, you know, like my business is going to beat your business every single day of the year, right? And he was right. And so I think that's one thing, is that they often try to tell you to lock your money away from your control, take it out of your power, you know, pay off your house, lock it up in equity. By the way, that was one of the things that hurt me the most in the last recession, because I kept paying down my equity thinking as a mortgage broker, I can just pull out money whenever I feel like, not realizing that if you're a business owner, banks hated you during the recession. They would not let you cash out equity. As a result, I watched my equity disappear and I had no more money. I would have been better off having that in cash in my control. Same thing with 401ks and IRAs. They tell you lock it away in that prison for, you know, till you're 59 and a half or whatever age the government tells you you can touch it without penalties and taxes and everything else. And even then, same thing. It's like, what if we had that money in our power and control today, but then got it out to generate income right now, versus lock it away forever, set it and forget it, as they always teach you, and you hope and pray it's actually going to make some sort of money and that the market doesn't tank right before you need to use it, right? That to me is like gambling. That's just too high of a risk. And as a business owner, although I take risks, I like calculated risks. I like to take risks that I know work. So that's what I teach people to do, is like just use your common sense, ignore all the stupid financial advisors that are just teaching you crap that really is not help people become financially free, and do what's been proven to work, which is get money in your control, produce passive income right now.
Awesome. For our folks watching or listening, where is the best place for them to go to learn more about all things Money Ripples and you?
Yeah, anything that's Money Ripples, as you just said, right? At Money Ripples on social media, moneyripples.com, or even our Money Ripples podcast you can follow as well.
Your passion is obvious. What do you like best about what you're doing?
The fact that I'm actually making an impact. I mean, that's what wakes me up every day, because I don't need the money. Like, honestly, my life would be easier not doing this business. I tell my team that all the time. Then I reassure them I'm not firing them. I'm not laying everybody off, you know. But that's the thing, is like, I mean, for me, it was really that impact. That's why I do my podcast, because I want to be able to reach more people and help break them free of that traditional money advice they always get, and do something that actually works. And that's why I don't just say, hey, let's just go sit on the beach and be happy, you know, and just, you know, drink, you know, pina coladas or whatever and get caught in the rain. You know, I'm not going to do that. No, I'm going to do whatever like actually blesses lives, because I feel like with great power comes great responsibility. And that's why I do what I do each day.
That is a beautiful thing. Well, we know your time's incredibly valuable. We greatly appreciate you spending some of it with us. This has been Seth Greene with Chris Miles from moneyripples.com. Chris, thanks again for joining us.
It's been such a pleasure, Seth. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody, for watching or listening. We will talk to you or see you next time.
Why do so many businesses struggle while others seem to explode overnight? Do you wish you had the secret to this type of exponential growth? Now, I've scaled more than 20 businesses to over $100 million, and it's not just luck. In my new book with Mark Tim, Mentor to Millions, you'll learn the repeatable framework I use in all my business ventures for massive success. Order at kevinmentor.com and get over $1,000 in bonuses. Head to kevinmentor.com.